Hi, this is Mike Bale with Banger Inc. In today's session, we're going to talk about project budgets in Sage Intacct. We're going to go in and show you how to enter a budget or import a budget, cost budget into the system. We're going to go through managing some of the changes to those budgets, and then we're going to run some reporting, comparing it to actuals, and do some forecasting in the system. So let's go right into it. Within Sage Intacct, I'm in my Timberline Construction Company entity in the top of the screen. And I'm going to go over to my projects application. And we have a new project in the system, and I'm going to click on the projects to get a list of my projects here. I'll filter it or sort it by newest first. So we have a new project here called Lucky Superstore. It's a commercial project, and we're going to go into this project, and part of the setup in the system is we're going to be able to go in and enter in or import in our estimated cost budget. If you're integrating with other products like Procore or Sage 300 Estimating, these budgets can also come in automatically through those systems, through APIs and through import-export scenarios as well. So what we'll do first off is we'll go into projects, and you notice here you have a project estimates button, and we're going to go and hit the plus button to put in a new project estimate for this job. Once in the screen, you have some header information. You can put a description of the budget. We can type in original budget for 24-100. You can associate it with a project. You could add your project on the fly here if you don't have it set up yet. Our project number is 24-100. And in the system here, we have the ability to have multiple estimate types. So in this system, you can have different types of estimates depending on what you want to track. If you want to do some as-of scenarios, the system will store one budget as the primary budget. So in this case, ours would be the original, or we'll use the current estimate type. And you can define what types of workflows update the totals of this budget. So in this scenario, the original entry would, any revisions or change orders, and approve changes as well. And if this is the first estimate for this project, it will automatically assign it as the primary. So if you don't check it off as the primary, it will automatically assign it once we save it. But we know this is going to be our primary estimate, so we'll check it off. The system also gives you the capabilities of adding attachments. So if you had any drawings, or if you had an actual estimate report, maybe from an external system or an Excel file, you could attach that here to the actual budget itself. One of the other great features of the project estimate here is it can integrate with the general ledger. So what's nice here is we'll have the ability to post the budgets over to the GL, and we can also define what's called a general ledger budget ID. And in this scenario, we have two set up. We have one for primary project and one for forecasting, which we'll get into later on. But what happens now is we get these budgets over to the financials area. We can run full job cost reporting directly there, and I'll show you some samples of that in a few more steps. And for that budget, you could determine what you want to use for the posting date of the budget. You can use the period of the project begin, or in this case, we're going to use the period of the estimate date, which was defined up here as January 1. So we're going to say estimate date is January 1. Then, basically, simple manual budget entry, you can come down into the estimate entries section and key in your budget manually. So you have what's called workflow type. So this is an original estimate. So we're going to come into here, and you would just go through and select your cost codes. So let's say, for example, demo and your cost types, and these are all going to be defined by your setup, and what's available depends on what you turn on to be available for that cost code. So we're going to sub out the demo work, and you can elect to key in estimated quantities, or you can skip it and just put an amount. So the subcontract is going to be 50,000 in this case. And then you can put an effective date in, but the way, again, that we set this budget up is we have the estimate date based on the actual job. So we don't need to actually put in any effective date in here. And you have a memo field as well. And you would just keep going down and down and down through the system to key in your estimated cost. Now that's the manual approach. And actually, in this presentation today, we're going to actually go a step further, and we're going to actually import the estimate. So I'm going to delete this line. And I'm going to come back up to the top. And actually, I'm not going to save this estimate because I'm going to actually show you now where instead of keying it in manually, you can import the estimate in manually as well. So let's click cancel here, cancel our changes. We'll get back to our main screen. And what you'll notice here is there's a function right in the project estimate section where you can import in the estimate, and you can import in the estimate with the WBS. What the WBS will do is it'll actually establish and set up your cost code structure for that project at the same time that it brings in the budget. So, you can actually build your cost code list for that project with the actual import of the system. So I do have a simple Excel sheet prepared already ahead of time to import the estimate in. There's a particular template that you can download, and this is basically the template right here. And you can see here in my Excel sheet, it just has my pre-fills in of all my different cost codes, what type of cost types or categories we're going to be using for that line, and if you want to import in units and unit cost or just amounts. So you could, it's not required to do the units, but you can most certainly import them in as well. What general ledger account they're related to, and basically it's a simple flat CSV import into the system. So there's my template here, and you'll notice here my costs, my estimated cost, if I highlight the totals, is going to be, if I could read that correctly, around 1.7 for the cost. So let's just close that for now. Actually, I'll save that one more time, and I'll shrink that down. So basically now to import an estimate, I can come right over to here to import estimate. You click on it, and you basically just have to go select where your file is saved. Mine's saved right here in my downloads folder. So I'm going to grab that project estimate import file. And what will happen is it'll email the results. So you want to select, make sure you have your email address in, or whoever is responsible for reviewing the results of the import. And I'm going to come in here and just simply click import. And I have to fix my email address. Sorry about that. Do have to have a valid email address. We'll click import. And there was an error, so we'll go find out what the error was on that import. And the system gives you an email with the error information. And I did notice down here that I did not have a estimate project ID in my Excel sheet. I was making some changes earlier, and it looks like I left off the first line item. So I was missing the estimate ID. So I went in and filled that out. And let's go ahead and try and import it again. So let's go back into here, import, grab that file. Okay. And make sure it's going to the email address, and we'll click the import button. And the system successfully imported in the project estimate in the system. So if I click done now we should notice, and we could do a filter on the project ID. Let's refresh the screen. And if we take a look here, we can go, well, there's my email letting me know that it's successfully imported. And there's our project estimate, and there's our estimate totals in the system. And that is in there now for the budget to be reviewed. There are some particular reports you can run. For example, there is a report called Project Estimate or Estimate Spreadsheet. Let's take a look at that. And once we get in this estimate spreadsheet, we can filter out the project that we want to run the estimate on. And you'll see our 24,100 right there. And then click View. And in here, you'll see a recap of our budget that we just imported in. So we can see here's our project. There's our cost codes with our groups in there as well. And then this is a nice report because it breaks it out by cost type, labor, material, equipment, sub, other, and then our total estimate for the project. Okay, so now what we can do in the system is there's some other things that you can do to manage these project estimates and keep them current in the system. So now that we got our project budget in, now we can actually go and manage the budget with change requests in the system. Let's say we had some internal issues and we needed to up the budget a little bit. Maybe let's say for this example, excavating, we ran into some large boulders and it's gonna up our estimated cost to complete here. So we're gonna actually go ahead and put an internal change order in for this. So we're gonna go into change management and go into change requests. And this will show me all my change requests in the system. You can have multiple change request types. And let's just click add here. And let's go ahead and say for that project, what's the change request date and what's the status. So we're going to go ahead and say approve because it's internal. We got approval already. And here's where you could define your different types. So if this was an owner change request, we could track this as well. But in this scenario, we want to do an internal change order. Additional cost for removing boulders. And you could put in an effective date for your price and your cost. In this scenario, we're just going to have a cost. Also here, if you were sending out a change request to the owner, you could select a particular form that you want to use to send that out and who you want to send it to. But in this scenario, it's an internal change. So we're just going to go ahead and we're not going to invoice or bill this out. So we're actually going to turn off to grab the project from the contract because we're not going to add it to the contract. So we're going to hit none here. And you could attach, again, you have attachments here. So if you wanted to do like a photo or something like that, you could fill that out. In this scenario, though, we just want to get this coded and the budget up to date. So let's go to 24,100. And let's say for this cost code, it's going to increase excavating and backfill. And it's going to be some additional labor in this scenario to get that removed. And we'll say it's going to be additional, going to take additional day here. Let's say our average cost is $56 a day. And so at this point here, we're going to add to the cost. And you'll notice is over here, our primary budget estimate ID will pre-fill. And this is the budget that this change request is going to affect. And so right here, there's our 24,100 estimate budget we just imported in. So it's approved. We're going to go ahead and post it, which really is more of a save. And what will happen then is now we do need to turn it into an actual physical project change order. So we can come into here and we can hit add. We can grab our project. And again, we're just going to make it today's date, additional cost. So you might have, several change requests that could all filter and flow into one change order. So this is where ours is a one-to-one, but basically we are going to set up one that's a one-to-one here, but in some cases you can have 3 change requests that get approved by the owner and they're going to flow into one change order. So we are going to make this, actually I'm going to leave it on pending for now until I'm certain. And the one thing you do need to do is before we can select the change request, we need to save this header. And again, we're not going to post it to the contract, but we're going to hit post here or save. And now you'll notice that I have that change request in here. And if I go back into it, now what I can do is over on the right is I can say select. There's the change request for $448 we entered in earlier. I can select it and add it. So if you had multiple change requests, you could add them here. And now you'll notice up on top, I have a total cost. and I have a change request. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to post that. And as soon as I do that, it's approved. Oh, my apologies. If you notice here, I forgot to approve it. So it's still in a pending stage. So that would show up over in the budget as a pending estimated change. What we want to do now is go back into it and let's approve it so we up our total here. So change request, status, I want to click approved, and then I want to post. Okay, so now that's going to up our project budget, and we can check that by running some reports again, but let's actually take a look at the project estimate setup screen that we initially were in. So I'll come into here. And again, I'm just going to filter the project to make it quick and easy. There it is. And if I go now and take a look at my entries, my budget entries, we can see here that on the top line, we have our estimated change here for the 448 and effective date of 320. Okay, so we can track that information in the system. And now that we have a updated project budget, as costs are coming into the system, you can manage those costs and track the costs and how they're coming as far as, you know, how you're doing on your budget, maintaining it. And you can do that several different ways in the system. There are dashboards, so you can do a project performance dashboard, for example. And so you can overall see your statuses of your projects and your, you know, your filters and calculations can be based on whatever you want to see on the project. So you can see over here that there's our project Lucky Superstore. Now we never entered a contract, but we would in a live environment. But there's our budget. And then you can see over here, we do have some costs and we have, you know, some gross profit calculations. So, you know, you could track this information in the system, and we're going to go in and run a particular report for you. You can also filter it by project. These dashboards are interactive. So for example, let's take a look at Lucky Superstore, and I can apply that just to this dashboard. And now we're just seeing information on that project. So you can see here, here's our actual amounts. We do have some actual costs in the system. Here's our budget. You know, and then we have, if we had other information filled in here, it would report accordingly for us. Okay. So one of the reports that we have set up in the system, and I mentioned, you know, posting those budgets over to the financial area. In General Ledger, and the way that we use the system, it uses dimensions, and a project is a dimension, a cost code is a dimension. So we can get financial reporting based on that information as well. So if I go into financial reports, one of the reports that we played with here was a report called Project Estimate to Actual. So if I just run this report and I'll hit the HTML button, I can date range it. I can filter a project. All of these can be turned on or off based on what you want to be able to filter and run reports on. So let's just say, let's take a look at that Superstore here for everything as of today. And if I click OK, you know, this report, now I was just playing around with this. This isn't, you know, I would make some tweaks to the headings and things like that. But you'll notice here, we have our estimated cost, which is the estimates that we imported in, plus this is revised. So we can also have original, approved changes, and revised estimate. There's our actual cost to date. And then we have remaining to estimate. So we have some calculations that you can run off the system. And we're going to get into this next with the calculated forecast to complete. So you can make these, you can take it a step further with some forecast to complete planning, and we can get a overall projected budget variance on this project. Okay, so you can track all of this information in here, and track and keep an eye on, you know, how's your project estimate doing to actual throughout the status of the project. So one of the abilities you do have in the system is to, like I mentioned earlier, is to have multiple budget project estimate types. So if we go take a look at that in the types here, we did, there is some samples set up here. We have what's called a current forecast at complete or a current forecast to complete, and then some historical. And you can see here, you can select which workflows update these budgets. So what we're going to do is we're going to elect to have the project managers go in and forecast what's to complete on the project. Okay. So what we can do to do that and establish an initial project estimate for that is what I like to do is I'll come into the actual budget. So there's the budget that we looked at earlier. I'm going to go click edit. And what you can do is you can hit this duplicate button. And what you can do is turn this into a forecast. So we can say, let's say this is April, let's go 24, 100, forecast to complete, April 2023. And we're going to give it an estimate type of current forecast to complete. And we're going to make this as of, let's say, we'll do this is going to be our April forecast. So let's do this as of April 1. And we'll do March 31st here. Okay, we're going to make sure that we're posting to our budget here. And now the budget that we're going to post to is this forecast to complete. So this project forecast budget. And we're going to make this based on the period of the estimate date because we're going to make this specific for the forecast. So we can still use this same setup here. And what it does here now is it fills in all of my original line items with the total amount. So what somebody can do now, and you could import this as well, but somebody can come into here and say, this is a forecast line, and we're going to estimate we're done with that line. We can come here and say we have forecast for HVAC subcontract that we're going to do. This is forecast to complete, so we're going to do another. We got another 40,000 to do for them, and you can come down into here and either fill these out, and zero them out, or you can fill out what's left to do in these. It depends on how you want to enter it. So let's just zero these out here, and we'll say we got about 12,000 here for project coordination. We're done with our structural and insulation. We need another 15,000 for insulation. We're good for material, and I think you get the idea here. But let's just, so once you set these up, then you can just add and edit these each month. So we got the first forecast here, and again, you can do this in Excel. And I thought I had let's go back to our electrical sub, and let's say we got 60,000 left for that. And let's say insulation 14. We'll see how our numbers are gonna, and then there's our change order, and we are done with that. Okay, so I have a forecast in here. And I'm going to now actually, this basically is saying we have 156,000 left forecasted left in cost. We're going to click save. And that's actually going to post our primary forecast over to the budget. And so now that general ledger financial report is also based on that forecast to complete and does a calculation based on actual plus forecast to complete to what's going to be our final number. So if I come into here, HTML, and I have a feeling we did pretty good, but let's see, I'm going to run this as of April 31st, or I'm sorry, March 31st, or I could do April. And let's just run 24,100. And let's do it okay, and let's see what we got here. So now, based on our entry, we have calculated forecast to complete versus, okay, so there's my forecast to complete. There's my actual to date. And I have a calculated forecast at completion for this is basically going to be, I have to change my calculation. That's right. I move my columns around and I have to change my calculation. So let's edit that financial statement and we'll come back in here. Okay, so I'm going to go over and I made those changes on my other screen. So if I come back into this project estimate to actual, this should now work. I had actually moved a column and forgot to change which columns it's pointing to in my adding and subtracting. So basically now if we come into here, and again, we're going to do March 31st, we're going to say 24,100, and we can do a report on that. And now these numbers look a lot better, but you'll notice here we have our budget. For the first line, we have actual cost to date. You know, it says we have 38,000 left based on our budget, but when the PMs did the forecast to complete, they only forecasted 12,000 remaining. So that gave us a calculated forecast of 44,000 and gave us a budget variance of, we are under budget for that line by $26,000. So this project obviously did very well, but you can kind of see how this can work here in your system and how you can track and keep on top of your estimate month to month using budgets in Sage Intacct and using the forecast options as well, along with monitoring your actual cost to budget. And you know, and another topic that we'll get into in some other sessions would also be managing your committed costs, your subcontracts and purchase orders as well, and factoring those in to even give you more flexibility in tracking your projects through the life cycle. So this concludes the session for today. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section of this live stream. And have a great day. Thank you.